Hello there, strugglers. We are coming at you from California and from Norway today with an interview with someone I think you probably already recognize, Mr. Bo Jewell. Thank you for talking with JWStruggle once again.
Thank you, Eric. It's nice to be here.
You know, it's nice to have you here, especially with such fantastic news, Bo. And I have to tell all of you that are watching my channel, I just finished reading a book. I just finished reading a book written by our friend, Mr. Bo, and it is a page turner. It took me to many highs. It took me to a few emotionally dark places because I can relate to some of it. I shed tears reading your book, Bo. I really did. I was moved by it. I jotted things down that affected me, that moved me, and of course, I want to bring up a couple of those and ask you some questions. But just tell me about the book. Tell us, why you wrote it and when it's coming out. We want to know everything.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. First of all, I'm of course happy that you liked it. Um, as a first-time writer, there is a lot of excitement. How will people react to this? Will they like it? Will they hate it? You know. So I'm very pleased about that. The reason I wrote the book is, of course, that I wanted to tell my side of the story. Um, it's been quite a journey, as you understand, and I think that I have learned a couple of things that are worth sharing. And I think that also the book is actually showing or shedding some light on things that people didn't know about cult life and especially after cult life.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things in your book. I mean, obviously, lots of former JWs and cult survivors have written books about their life. Sometimes they want to call it a memoir, an autobiography, or whatever. Uh, your book has kind of a little of everything because you don't just focus about your life in a linear fashion. You kind of jump forwards and backwards in time, which I really liked. I thought that was an interesting way to tell the story, and it kept me interested. So I liked that.
Yeah, good. I appreciate that.
There were so many little things I jotted down. Bo, can I share just a couple things that jumped out at me?
Sure, go ahead.
Uh, for example, you said living a double life in and out of the religion was something that you did. And I never really thought about it. I thought, well, once a person gets out, why would you need to live a double life? But you talked about how you were with your longtime girlfriend of 15 years and you needed to get this junk out. You needed to talk about it, but she didn't want to hear it. And so you felt like even after you were free from that cult control, you couldn't be yourself in that relationship for many years, and that must have worn on you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of the things that are I actually feel that are missing in the books that's already out there from former cult members is that they don't talk much about their life after being in a cult and how it affects their lives. For me, it was like, I came out of the cult when I was 23 years old. I built myself a whole new like social network with new friends and everything. But I had this deep down in my soul thing that I was afraid to actually show people who I really am. And and it affected, of course, every relationship I had after leaving the cult up until a couple of years ago. And I think that when people get out of cult and they don't like get into the real basics of what have you been through and how did that affect you, and just like try to say, I don't need any help with this, I will just go on living. For me, that actually turned into some sort of um, not being able to be 100% honest out of the fear of losing again. Like, you do everything because you want to be loved and you want to keep the people you have in your life, and you're afraid that if they find out who you really are, they won't love you. They will leave you. And of course, I lost my daughter to the cult, and that was just something I didn't want it to happen again. So instead of being 100% honest with who I really am, I whenever I met somebody or was in a relationship with someone, I was always thinking, why are you asking this? How do you want me to respond? And I tried to respond as I thought that they wanted me to respond. Of course, I was liked by everybody because I never kind of, said, no, this is not right. We shouldn't do it like that. We should do it my way. So I think that's one of the really big dangers of living a double life your whole childhood, more or less. And when you get out, you sort of need to work through that. And for me, it didn't happen before after I turned 40.
Well, it's they say life is a journey, and here you are coming to these realizations just in the last few years. And you know what? I think it's fantastic. It's part of what makes your book a triumphant story, is that yes, you talk more about life after the cult, coming to grips with these things. And I would like to tell all the viewers that, Bo, your book is brutally honest in many ways. I mean, you talk about the struggles you've had with suicidal thoughts and feelings of wanting to leave this earth, and how you've been able to to work on that, overcome that, and bravo, because that's encouraging to a lot of people, I think.
Oh, thank you. Um, there was no reason of writing this book if I didn't like go the whole 9 yards. Um, and as you say, I don't hold back on the things where I screwed up or made mistakes. Um, and it turned out to be a very honest book about life in general.
Yeah, it is honest. Now, again, I want to share some tidbits. I want to whet people's appetite because I think they're gonna enjoy things like this. For example, I was reading and I stopped and I wrote this down. Meeting your biological father made me smile. A few pages later, when you called your sister and met her, it made me cry. Tears of happiness, it did. So things like that, I think, are very positive, and it's affecting me now because I think about my family. I think about all the witnesses that have shunned and neglected family members that aren't in the truth. And
Yeah.
it's a tragedy, a human tragedy, a family tragedy that goes on right now, today, every day, as this cult continues to spin their bullshit.
Yeah. But I agree 100%. And you see, my family got actually torn apart because of the religion. People are still suffering in one way or another. I mean, just a couple of days ago, actually, it was Monday this week, my grandfather passed away, 84 years old, and one of the one of the, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that this was a funny thing, but one of the weird things was that he is not even going to have a regular funeral. He will just be put in an unmarked grave, and I didn't know that they had actually discussed this amongst themselves, and he agreed on that, and he wanted it that way. So I just learned that through a comment or two on Facebook. So you see, um, yeah, this cult is tearing people apart, and we who actually managed to have enough, let's say, strength to get out, at least we can learn from each other so that we don't have to suffer for decades after leaving. I hope that my book can actually shed some light on that, and that people can get from it that all it takes is for you to be honest. I mean, 100% honest, and people will love you.
Be honest, and people will love you. I'm going to quote you on that. I that's a
You can do that.
fantastic. But not too honest when they ask you, "Does this dress make me look fat?" Maybe.
Well, we have some great songs that we have to like navigate, but um, more or less, if the dress doesn't fit, I mean, just say it because they will see the pictures afterwards.
All right, all right. I'm getting silly here. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, now
No.
one thing that you do, because just dovetailing on what you just said, is you give advice. You give practical advice, but it doesn't come across like you're telling us, the reader, what to do. You're just talking about what worked for you. And here's another thing I jotted down, and this is a quote from your book. You said, "When you close the door to a cult, the first door you should open is to a therapist." And I
Yeah,
liked that. And I really, I mean, the therapy helps, and a lot of us need it when we get out.
absolutely. And that is one of the if that is the only thing that gets through after people have read this book, that is very important. I didn't seek professional help until I was like 42 years old. And that is, I think, when I see some of the emails I get or the letters people write to me from not only from the JWs but from other cults as well, they are all very afraid of seeking professional help. And I think that one of the reasons is that deep down we have learned that professional psychiatrists and psychologists, they cannot help you. They can only make it worse, right? Um, and that is not true. The truth is you need help because you are there alone with all these huge problems, and very few people understand it. And I think that that is one of the reasons also when you read my book, you will see that it was not that my let's say my ex-girlfriend, that it was not that she didn't more or less like it. She didn't quite understand, and I wasn't able to tell. I mean, even if I tried, we were more or less the same age. We grew up not far away from each other, and it was like I came from a different planet. And I think that a professional can help you sort these things out before they actually become like permanent damage, because they can really make your life hard, and it's not even necessary because there is a lot of knowledge out there. The biggest problem today, I think, is to find a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist who actually knows something and wants to talk about religion. You see, that is not easy, but it can be done.
That's a good point. And if, in other words, if you're shopping for a person that's a good fit for you for some therapy, I had a therapist tell me that one time, is they said, you know what, you should shop around and find somebody that wants to talk about the things you want to talk about. That's, like you said, comfortable talking about religion, about cults, because yeah, some medical professionals, whether they're doctors or mental health specialists, you're right, they don't want to go there because they don't get it. They don't realize how integral that is to the problem.
That's very true. And one of the examples that also is in the book is actually of a woman who it took her many years to get out of the cult. When she did, a couple of weeks later, she actually went to visit her doctor, and he started to say stuff like, "Yeah, but my my wife have an aunt who is a Jehovah's Witness, and I've been working with a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were nice people." And it was like he didn't understand how this was important to her, and those sort of things can actually make things worse. So it is important to find therapists who actually know something about it. And I'm not saying that is easy, but I'm saying that it's possible.
It is, and it's important. Now,
Yeah.
if I could, I wanted to share just a couple more little things that jumped out at me, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so we'll kind of finish up and get to the part about when it's coming out, where we can get it, and all that in a second. But
Thank you.
you mentioned that woman that went and spoke to her doctor. You also mentioned a couple other people that you were able to directly help, and I was just tickled by some of these. You talked about this JW man that needed a blood transfusion. You spoke
Yeah.
to his nurse. You spoke to his doctor. Then you spoke to him and told him that you had some new light for him. And sure enough, he took the blood, and his life was saved because you were able to do that. I mean, that was just great. I mean, that makes me feel good. It certainly must be gratifying to you.
That was actually one of the, let's say, the ones that I have mixed emotions about. And one of the reasons is that, I had to tell him what, I mean, the patient, the one he was actually close to dying. And I had to tell him that you are allowed, to have certain blood things, like, but you cannot have whole blood. And then I spoke to the doctor, and 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, they called back and said this guy is actually alive now, and he would have died. So it was it's described in the book as a weird story, and I think it's just one of those things that it happens, and you have to act on the spot. And I did what I felt was right at that point. I'm not looking back on it and say that it was wrong, but it was, a little bit in the gray maybe. He actually thought that he was speaking to someone who were on the, what is it called in English?
The
The
hospital
hospital.
liaison committee.
Yeah. Um, he got the second best, I think. And it saved his life. So I
Yeah, I
don't
thought
think
it
it's,
was a fantastic story. I had no misgivings or thought, oh, that's great. I just thought it was great.
yeah,
You one other thing that you do is you talk about activism. You have a bonus section where you say, if you want to be an activist, here's some things you can do. You give some points. You talked about the first time you did a real activist thing and you met that journalist. You're walking into that convention. I believe that was around 2012. You said uh,
yeah.
you were nervous, you were scared, but yet you mentioned something that rang true to me. As you said, there's a smell of fear at the convention. Everybody there is afraid. And I never thought about it that way, but it's true.
Maybe it is. I mean, uh, the whole cult is built on fear. It's fear of not being good enough. It's fear of somebody finding out that you actually maybe have doubts. It's fear of everything. It's fear of Armageddon, and that is actually the smell that you can feel it in a huge convention hall with like 7,000 people. So my fear was nothing compared to 7,000 other afraid people. And I recall that very much. And it is true. It smelled of fear.
I had an experience a little bit like that. I went to a funeral a couple years ago of a woman that I respected, and she passed, and of course she's a witness. So I go to this funeral. There's like 300 people. They're packed into this Kingdom Hall, and I'm a notorious apostate. Not as notorious as Bo Jewel, but I'm up there in my little corner of the world. So I'm getting ready to go into this Kingdom Hall, and I was nervous, and my heart was pounding, and because I knew the people were going to part around me like I had Ebola. And my friend says to me, he says, remember, they're more scared of you than you are of them.
Yeah.
and
And
it's sure and
that's
sure enough, I went in there. I ended up sitting near the front and near the center because that was the only seat left. And I just didn't care. I was there to show my respect to that person, and it ended up being a positive experience, just like all the rest. It's the fears are in our mind sometimes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the fear is always in your mind. I mean, we need to learn the difference between fear and danger, because fear is never, I mean, completely real. Most things that we fear are not ever going to happen. So, but real danger, of course, I mean, if there is a tiger in your backyard, you have some something to be afraid of, but that's not the kind of fear that we're talking about. We're talking about some fear that are installed into you by a cult, uh, and especially the fear of, you know, not being able to sort of be who you are, because if you let people get inside, maybe there is something in there that's not according to cult rules. And the story with the two friends of mine and myself when I was 15 years old at the football stadium, you know, we sat there while they played the national song, and everybody, I mean, 25,000 was standing up, and the three of us was sitting there, and we sat, even if it was embarrassing for us, but it was out of fear. If one of us had like stood up, maybe the other two would tell it to the elders. You know, we did not. So you can't trust anybody, and when you can't trust anybody, I mean, not even your own family, then of course you develop some sort of disorders.
Mhm. Well, and I like what you said about a tiger. That's a real threat. But the elders are a paper tiger. The watchtower is a paper tiger. It just looks scary, but underneath it all, there's nothing there. So that's a way to kind of put it in my mind anyway.
Yeah, and look at it the other way. I mean, what kind of real powers do these people have? No one, nothing. They can't do anything. Of course, they can. The thing that they really can do is to sort of kidnap your family, like they have done in numerous cases. But other than that, they cannot kill you, and you will not die. But of course, it's not an ideal situation to lose your family and friends. I understand that, but um, that is the only real thing that they can do to you. And I see more and more people leave. We are having like people calling in and sending messages and stuff like that. And we have some really great stories about young people leaving, like getting reunited with their family members again. And you know, there is nothing that sort of make my heart sing and be happy when I hear these stories. Like, yeah, you know, the elders said they want to talk to my daughter. She's like 17 or something like that. But she just told them no. They have no power over me. And when young people say that, we are getting ahead, I think.
We are. The young people are leaving in droves, and you know what? That's just one more reason that people need to get your book. The Least of God's Priorities is the title, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So when can they get the book? When can they get the book? Where do people go to get your book, and where?
Okay. Um, and this is very exciting moment. This is the first time I'm actually telling anybody when the book will be ready. It can be ordered from Wednesday next week. So that is the 7th, I think. It's the 3rd today. Yeah.
So
Is
the
that the
this
correct date?
coming week, October 2015,
Yeah.
and where should they go
When?
to get it?
Well, it will be available on Amazon. And they can also visit the new web page, bojewel.com. So we will have everything ready for Wednesday, and maybe the website will actually go up on Monday. So it should be possible to pre-order the book. But we are, you know, this is very exciting, very new. But first coming Wednesday, yeah. Then everything should be ready, and they can order it from the website, from Amazon. It will be available both as paperback and a Kindle version, and we are also working on a little um, extra that we will let people know later on. But we have some good stuff coming.
All right, so Kindle, paperback, Amazon, bojewel.com, all great places to go to get your copy of this fantastic book. And I don't say that lightly. Look, I've read a lot of former JW's books, many of them, and there's always something in all of them that I like, but I wouldn't say that they're all fantastic. They're cathartic to the people that write them, but some of them are not as interesting as others. Yours is interesting. It's accessible to people that never were witnesses as well. There's going to be a lot of folks that, maybe their background is they were an abuse survivor. Perhaps they just love to read triumphant success stories. Either way, the book is going to be a good read. It's a page turner. It's about 270 some pages. It's not, too short. It's not too long. Oh, and I wanted to mention your editor. She is a gem. You can tell that she really helped a lot with the flow of the book. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I would not have been able to do this without her. She is a brilliant editor. Alexandra James has done a huge amount of work with this, and she's been a real pain in the butt as well. I need to say that because I know she will see this interview later on. I was sending her, the first time I sent her the manuscript, she got back to me a couple of days later saying, yeah, this is great. I just cut out, 1/3. And it was like, what? Really? Yeah, and then I got this list of things that she wanted me to, write more about. And that's how we have been working now for over a year or so. It's not something that we just made with our left hand while we were doing other things. No, this is worked through, and we have done our best. And I think that when you have that feeling, when you are getting out there with something like this, and you know for sure that you have done all you could, well, then it's all up to the audience and people who read this. But I hope that people will have the same experience as you, that they find this book interesting and, as you say, a page turner. That will be wonderful.
Yes, and hopefully we can follow up again, and when you get ready to release your next big whatever it is in the future. But continued success, Bo Jewell. Thank you so much for coming on The Struggle. I feel privileged to be able to be the first interview and help promote your book, because I do believe it's a positive thing.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Yes, I really hope that people will go out there and buy my book.
Yeah, you look a little thin. I think you need some more protein.
No. The thing is this. I have actually tried something new. It's called exercise. It works.
All right. Well, keep it up, whatever you're doing, Bo. And thanks again to you. Thank you, Alexandra, as well. And we will talk to you again, my friend.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. Have a nice evening.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.